Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very special live event focusing on dating after 50. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Airlo, who make staying connected while traveling incredibly easy with eSIMs for over 200 destinations. So you get affordable, reliable data the moment you land. And I know that our special guests are actually traveling at the moment, so this is a relevant sponsorship for them. I am Sarah Laing, before we get to Amit and Anne. And the two people who are going to lead our conversation today are two very well-positioned folks for this topic. We have Amit Karia and Anne Bokma. Through their company, Chapter 2 Dating, they help people get back onto the dating scene after some time away. They also have personal experience of this. They actually met on Tinder just a few short years ago. Before we dive into our conversation, I want to give you a bit of background on Better Love. If you're not familiar, it actually launched last year with the idea to give people a real way to find love off the dating apps. So people will write in, tell us what they're looking for, a kind of personal ad. No photographs though. And we just connect people based on what they're interested in. And we've actually had 3 love matches come out of this so far. And that's just with 1 year in. Welcome, Amit and Anne.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. So excited.
Coming to us live from Costa Rica, I believe.
Well, no, we just got back from Costa Rica, so, in Ontario.
Where Amit did use Airlo.
Yes.
And he's not paid to say that.
No.
Shall we just start by you guys telling us a little bit about how you met on the apps, I believe?
Yeah, I'll let Anne start.
Well, I'd been married for 32 years. My marriage had been over for about 5 or 6 years, and I ventured into the online world. And for those who are watching, I know how frustrating, anxiety-provoking, fearful, etc. it can be, because I've been there. And long story short, I tried a bunch of different apps. I landed on Tinder at the end, and that's where I met Amit 5 years ago. And it's been just a wonderful relationship, and I'm just very thankful. And I know the apps are stressful, but in the end, it worked. It worked for us.
And now my turn. I'm going to say ditto, almost identical. No, I mean, we all come different ways, different journeys. And my marriage had ended, and I spent about a year, just not knowing what to do. And a friend of mine said, look, you should consider going on, one of these apps. And I had no idea. This was like a foreign subject. And so he took a few pictures and put a short bio, and then it started. And I think, I was hopeful. I didn't really know what to expect, but it did expose me to a lot of interesting and fun people. And finally, after many dates, I met Anne, and it's been great ever since.
So how long were you kind of dating on the apps, trying to meet someone before you sort of found each other?
Yeah, I would say less than a year for me. I met about 20 guys. I got it down to a real science, which we'll talk about later, how to do a first date and how to get out of a first date. My very first experience, I got stood up, and that was shocking to me. I was so naive. But after that happened, I just really readjusted my expectations and realized this was a whole different world than dating in real life. And I'm sorry, I forgot what the question was.
Well, how long were you dating before you kind of...
Oh, yeah, about 9 months.
Yeah, in my case, it was over a year, actually closer to 2 years, because this was during COVID. And, there weren't a lot of options. You couldn't really go to a bar or restaurant. And so, arranging walking dates was, the only option you had. And so I really enjoyed it. And through that, met people, but there was never anything that was totally long-term. And that's always challenging, because sometimes you meet a person who might be more interested in you and you might not be, and you're not sure. So we always recommend the number one thing is just look for friendship. Look for a friend, because it doesn't have to be this knight in shining armor. If it's a heterosexual relationship, it doesn't have to be Mr. or Ms. Perfect. It can just be a friend, and then you take it from there.
I mean, how are you feeling? You were both on there for, a little while. Were you optimistic, discouraged? Any juicy horror stories? Because I think
oh yeah, well, I have a couple. Most of the guys I met were perfectly normal men. There were a couple who sent me rude texts later. But by the time I met Amit, to be really honest, I met a lot of men, but I did not meet anyone who really came close to what I was looking for. So I said to myself, I'm really not going to meet the one. So I do want to date. So I changed my expectations and thought, I'll just date a variety of people, like maybe two or three, have a couple of dates a month, go to the show, movies, maybe have intimacy if I'm comfortable with that. And I really gave up on the idea of meeting one person who was going to be, which was kind of sad, but I was being practical. And because I didn't find one person who I just felt I could really connect with. And then with Amit, the connection was pretty immediate and easy and fun and joyful. And it just goes to show sometimes you have to stick it out for 20 dates or more. And I'm really glad I didn't give up.
Emmett, how about
Yeah,
you?
very mine's, slightly different in the sense that I think, we all have different journeys and we all have different expectations and maybe heartache. And, it takes time to get over who you were with before. We talk to a lot of women and men who've lost their partners. And it takes time to sort of, they always use the term work on yourself, but I think it just takes time to get back into it. Again, if you don't put too much pressure. I think people tend to put too much pressure, like, oh, I have to find someone. I don't want to be alone. I'm lonely. Just let it be natural. Go on dates. Use the apps for what they're for, just meeting people and be able to say no if you don't like someone. Sometimes we're too kind and we don't want to let someone down, but there is ways to nicely just end quote friendship and then be open to meeting someone else. I think it's just the excitement and the novelty also of meeting somebody and not knowing. I've met a few people who I've still stayed friends with. We might not have been dating partners, but we're friends and we
Golf.
counsel. And we got one particular person I golf with her still, and it's fine. I think it's a very adult response.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add to that, if I could, Sarah, is that everyone is very jaded about the apps. We hear this all the time. There's no good men out there. I hear that from women. The apps are a joke. It's so discouraging. It's so awful. When you know how to use the apps, things can change. And that's what we teach. We have a workshop that we offer called How to Get Great Dates Online. It's available on Eventbrite, April 1st and April 15. You can sign up for that or go to our website. And what we teach is how to work the apps. One of the key things Amit already mentioned, get to the first date as soon as possible. Text maybe a couple of days. Then if he doesn't ask you out or she doesn't, hey, are you free Thursday for a walk? Get to the date. The app is a tool to meet in person.
And we're going to
Yeah,
dive into lots of really good
great, great.
practical tips when we get to our reader questions.
All
But
right.
first, a little birdie told me that we almost weren't sitting here together because there was a little bit of a snafu before you guys even had that first date. Am I correct?
It happens. Snafus happen. We're all human. What happened, Anne?
Well, Amit reached out to me on the app at a really busy time in my job. When I was scheduling everything by the minute or by the hour. And so he said, how about I call you Wednesday at noon? So I put it in my calendar, Wednesday at noon, Amit. I didn't know the guy. We just texted a couple of times. He had a great profile, by the way. And then Wednesday at noon came and went and there was no phone call. And by this time I was like, whatever, you do get a little bit jaded and I didn't allow myself to get hurt. I'm just like, move on. And then the next day he messaged me and I think he messaged me and said, hey, do you want to go for coffee? And I'm like, I value punctuality or something like that. Reliability, I think I said. So I'm really sorry. I don't think this is going to work. And he was like, okay. And I didn't think anything of it.
Right.
The next day he texted me, he said, you seem like the forgiving type. Would you give me another chance? Can we meet for coffee today? So it was a great thing to say because I didn't want to prove, that I wasn't the forgiving type.
That's right. Well, so it was just a small little, it's a Hail Mary for all the sport, parabola. It's just saying she could have said no again and that could have been it. But I wanted a chance, because I found earlier on, when you're doing the apps, you're doing pictures and bio, but someone had told me, they said, you're really good in person. I said, wow, like I could take that the wrong way, but I have to get to the first date. I have to meet this person. So my goal was to at least go for a walk and a coffee with Anne. And thankfully she said yes.
And I don't think I ever asked you why you didn't call me that day.
I think it was just,
What
Look,
happened?
it's your phone, you're putting it under the date.
You're
And I
probably
think
doing it while you were driving.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm always on the car, and sometimes you just say, "Oh, committed to memory," which is fading. You have to put it in your calendar, and if it's not on the calendar,
That's right.
you miss it.
But it's another example of how, yes, you can be a little savvy and jaded about people, but don't let yourself get too jaded, because I could have said, forget it. And I'm so glad I didn't. It really changed my life.
And that's a really important point. No two dates or no two partners are the same. And so sometimes, I meet people who are so jaded or upset because they'll say, "Oh, you won't believe how bad that person was." Yes, but the next one, it's not connected to that one, right? We're all individuals. So give the person a chance.
And we're going to get into our reader questions soon, but you got to tell us, how did you know each other was the one? When did we know, okay, this is more than just someone who forgets to put things in their calendar. This could be someone I might spend the rest of my life with.
Well, it was a bit of I thought, looking back, kind of like a Hollywood moment, because we met at this coffee shop and she was walking down the street and I'd come a little earlier because I always try to come a little early just to make sure I know the scene, I know where I am. And she's walking down the street. I'm like, wow, it's Mary Tyler Moore. Now, again, that could be a dated reference. A lot of people would be like, what's that? Now I could say it's like, a mature Taylor Swift or something. But I said visually, because there has to be visual connection, right? And then once you meet, then the banter starts, and then you just can't stop. And then we went for a walk. We sat at a picnic table, and I was just like, wow, she's just so refreshing and fun.
I have to say, it was fun and easy. And this is one thing I tell my adult kids now about relationships that I didn't realize when I was young. It should be easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be fraught and hard and difficult and, conflictual. Our relationship is really easy. I don't think we've ever had a fight in 5 years. Now, we don't have kids together. We don't have a house together. We don't pay bills together. But it took me a lifetime to figure out, you can be really attracted to people who are complicated and damaging sometimes. But when it's easy, and it was just easy.
Yeah.
That's how we knew.
And is that kind of why you guys were like, let's take our experience and our expertise and sort of turn it into a way to help others?
Well, I heard a lot of sad stories from women, I don't know if Amit heard as many. I mean, I think you heard some, but so many women who were just, and you know what? There's this whole decentering men movement now, and I totally understand that. I don't think everyone needs to have a partner. I don't think women need to have a partner. I know lots of single older women who love being on their own. So we are not pushing this idea that you have to have a partner. But it is a natural thing to want in life for many people. And I just heard a lot of really cynical, sad stories. And I thought, we talked about it and thought, between the two of us, we did date a lot of people and we learned a lot of lessons and we have a lot of stories. Let's see if we could offer some advice. We're not psychologists. We don't have any special training. We're just two people who put on very inexpensive workshops, mostly for women over 50. And then we do coaching for men one-on-one, because men don't like to go in groups.
Yeah. So that goes to a whole subject and deals primarily with a lot of women who are open to talking, where men don't necessarily talk, not only about relationships, but about anything other than the game last night. That's what they talk about, the score of the game or their new car. So what we try to do is work with men one-on-one who prefer privacy. It'd be pretty hard to get a group of men together on a call and talk about relationships. Like, they just don't, do that. And also, I would say men now over 50, a lot of them who've ended the relationships, they're not sure how to go. Some of them want to stay on their own. Some of them want to just be light daters and not get into anything serious. That we hear that a lot. They want to date younger people. And again, I think that both groups need to communicate and both need to get out and meet people. And you'll find some great people if you give it a chance.
Yeah, Amit happens to be 2 years younger than me. So not all men are looking for women a lot younger. Sometimes we dated people that we actually liked and it didn't work out. And I know in one case I recommended someone to date a friend of mine, and they did go out for about 6 months. In the end, it didn't work out. But this whole idea of going into it like, maybe I'll meet a potential friend, is so much less fraught than, what's this guy going to be like? Is he going to be the one, or is he going to be a jerk or whatever? Just like, have a sense of curiosity about it.
Yeah, I think that's what I also have 2 adult daughters. So does Anne. And I used to always tell them, always be curious, ABC, be curious about people, ask questions, because that's when you're going to find out some interesting things. You might have commonalities. And I know my experience was positive. Now, there were always a few bad experiences, and
Like your first one.
my first one, yeah. So I didn't know much, and there's a lot of learning that happens in the first few dates. And so this one, she had artwork on the screen, and I met her, and she wanted it to become intimate very quickly. She said that's what men want, and I was not interested, and I said, well, I don't know, I'm not comfortable. Let's just go for coffee. So saying that to another man, they'd be like, well, that's great. I said, no, but that's not what everybody wants, right? Sometimes you want to just connect with the person. You don't want it to get intimate too quickly. There was another experience. I've been with someone, we'd gone out for 6 dates, and she said, well, are you sure you're not, maybe you're gay because you haven't tried anything? I said, well, maybe I'm just respectful because I have 2 daughters. So not all men are creepy. Not all men are looking for intimacy right away.
One thing I would say for the men listening, and this was an issue that I had on my dates, that, like I say, most of the men were perfectly nice. They did not ask any questions.
Yeah.
And I'm an extrovert. I'm a journalist. It's really easy for me to ask questions. So I would purposely kind of tone myself down, and they wouldn't ask me any questions. And that was a complete turnoff. So ask your date a question. What do you do for fun? Do you have a hobby? What's something that you love to do in your childhood? Google it. Go on ChatGPT. Come up with some questions. That's what women want. They want you to show an interest. Don't tell them they're beautiful. Ask them what they think.
Well, I know
Yeah. So
sorry,
yeah.
Amit.
Go
I
ahead.
say I
Go
think
ahead.
for a lot of people, like before we even get to, questions, first dates, it's just like gearing yourself up to get out there. Like, especially if you have been in a long-term relationship or you've just sort of been sitting this whole thing out for quite a while. For that person who is sort of like, they haven't even dipped a toe in and they're nervous about it. How do you kind of get there, if that's even what you want, maybe?
Well, I'd say take our workshop because it's really going to help you. We're going to have over 20 women online talking about their experiences, and we're going to teach everything we know. Have a dating buddy, maybe another friend that you can kind of compare notes with and share your stories.
Yeah, I think it's sort of kind of like fitness, when you need to get out there and do something. Maybe you talk about it with your friends, or maybe you have somebody who you go to the gym with, and so that person keeps you on point, and you can share stories. Oh, I have a date coming up a couple of days. And then after, you can discuss it and analyze what could have been better, what was great, what wasn't so good, and then know that you have to get back on and go again, right? And so the apps give you that volume of options, and it's up to you to curate what you want to choose. You can say no to everybody, or you can say I'm going to pick 1 or 2 a week and then go from there.
Exactly. And it's getting over that dread, because if you are looking for a relationship, whether it's a companion, a marriage partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, a fling, if you are looking for that, you got to go through it. I mean, I love that the Toronto Star is trying to help people find a way to connect without going on the apps. Anything that, if you can meet in real life, that's wonderful. People used to do that through the personals, right? And write letters. But the dating apps are here to stay. I mean, people who are 20 use them and people who are 80 use them.
Yeah.
So learning how to work them and realizing the payoff can be huge if it's a wonderful relationship.
Yeah.
Keep your dates short. It doesn't have to be a big agonizing thing. A quick walk that you schedule on a Thursday afternoon, meet in a safe place. Make it a peripheral part of your life, not the focus of your life.
That's right.
Keep it in its place. And I think that can help.
And you both mentioned you both have adult children. And I think for people who are older and getting into dating, how do you kind of talk to your kids about that? Because that might be a new way of sort of seeing your parent as someone who's out there in the dating game.
You want to start?
Yeah, I think my kids, I was separated for a while. Certainly, I never introduced them really to anyone except Amit because none of my dates went that far. They see me as a person who loves to be out there and meet people. And I think they were happy for me, and they really like Amit. He's teaching my youngest daughter how to drive. He plays golf with my ex. I mean, it's gotten pretty friendly and comfortable, and that's because of the type of person he is. So accepting and kind and generous and easygoing, you know. I think where it gets a little challenging is if you have really young kids. Our kids were in their 20s. If you have a 12-year-old or 14-year-old, I'd be really careful about introducing them to people. They don't need to know everything about your life. Get a babysitter. Hopefully your ex will look after the kids once in a while. Don't introduce them until you're well into it for a few months, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's really key is the age and maturity level, because you don't want, to bring someone in, especially if you have young kids, and then they grow attached, and then that your relationship ends, and that can cause extra trauma,
Mhm.
But I think I know my kids have met Anne, they really love her, and we're looking forward to spending more time, everyone together.
Yeah, I think most kids want their parents to be happy,
Yeah.
and so it's really worked out well for us. We have a lot of fun when we're all together.
Yes, and we are planning a trip where we might be using the Airlo eSIM is in Ireland. So that's coming up. And I thought I would be using my name. It's actually Amit, but I'm going to go with Emmett. It's a very Irish name, and I think I might pass.
Everyone will pronounce it correctly.
They will. They'll say, yeah, they will.
And in terms of like the people you coach or even in workshops, like are there sort of common pitfalls, mistakes, things people are doing without even realizing that are like actually maybe making this harder than it needs to be for them?
Yeah, I think
yeah.
we are a visual group, like visual. Humans are visual, so you really need to have good quality pictures. And a lot of times, people will say, "Well, men especially." Like, I apologize on behalf of men. They'll have the baseball cap, they'll have the sunglasses,
Fish pics.
fish pics, and and worse. And I'm just thinking, like, be decent. Like, make it so that it's photos that are going to be looked at by your employer, or somebody that try to put time into it. Try to we have photographers that we use, that we recommend. Sometimes it's good to have a nice professional picture, a headshot. If you have pictures with other family members or exes, and then you've xed off their face, like, that doesn't look good. And we see that, and I'm sure anyone who gets on an app will realize, like, what, because you only have a few seconds to make an impression, so it has to be a decent picture. And there's nothing wrong with having a good picture. And the key is, when you meet the person, there shouldn't be a big disconnect between the picture and them. Like, so you shouldn't be looking around going, where is this person? If it's too good, it might be a fake, and maybe they're using it to scam you. So yeah, picture, very important.
Yeah, invest in your dating profile. We help people write their profiles because a lot of people have a hard time writing about themselves. So we interview them for an hour, and then we write their profile, make it unique and kind of fun so it can stand out. But Amit is so right. A photo is what everyone looks at. You spend like less than like half a second looking at the photo. If you spend a couple $100 on some great photos, a variety of great professional photos, you're going to get noticed, especially if you're a guy, because a lot of the guys' pictures leave a lot to be desired. It shows that you care, that you're putting some effort into this. You might actually put effort into a relationship. So your dating bio is important. Don't just whip it off and throw it up there. Think
Yeah.
about it carefully, craft it, curate it.
Curate it. And because what I always looked at is, I was one of many men in a specific geographic area that was competing for somebody's attention. So I had to be very careful how I curated my pictures. And I started writing my bio in point form, because I found that people read in point form. So that would be easier to read. And then at the end, I would just say, let's just right swipe and get to the first date. I'm even telling them what to do. Didn't always work, but
his bio was excellent. He had a photo in a bright orange shirt, full body photo, holding a bottle of champagne and just kind of smiling. And the first line of his bio is what got me. It said, been in Canada 50 years, more like Russell Peters, less like a poo.
From The Simpsons. Yeah. So that I was dealing with, this is something we should discuss, because there are so many different races of people, right? And so if you are open to meet other people, and South Asians have this, I've lived here over 50 years, but visually people always say, "Hey, where are you from?" Because they're assuming I just arrived. where no one asks and
Which
that.
is fine.
No one asks that and
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
so I wanted to deal with the fact that I'd been here a long time, that, I know, Tim Hortons, I know Canadiana, if that was important. But yeah, for your visual, people are drawing conclusions about you, right? So I always wanted to deal with, what are they thinking? How can I answer some of those questions and make them want to meet me? That was it.
And
And
what
it
about
worked.
when and what about when folks are actually kind of they've met someone, they're like sort of are there sort of like do's and don'ts just kind of very quickly, maybe like should you date 5 people at once, like, or maybe only focus on one, like sort of mechanics of kind of like when you're dating.
Yeah, it can get very complicated. In the beginning, I had a little notepad and I would write down John, 54, 3 kids, sailor, and then it just got too much. And I think Amit had the same problem. So I would date, maybe have like 3 or 4 dates a week, but dates were a coffee or a walk. And to be honest, when Amit and I met, because I had changed my thinking, I really liked him, but I thought, and he was open with me. He's like, I'm dating other people as well. So I thought, well, I'll just keep dating other people too. And for, I'd say 2 months, maybe
Yeah.
6 weeks,
Yeah.
we would say like, oh, I'm not available on Friday, but I'd love to see you Saturday. We knew that we were seeing other people. And I would probably not have been okay with that if I hadn't changed my approach. But for some reason, I was okay with it. And then eventually he said to me, let's not date other people.
Or it's get off the app,
How do
right?
you
That's the
feel?
big thing. It's get off the app. Are we
Yeah.
going to do it together? Okay, let's push the button at the same time. And it's true. When I had met Anne, I was meeting other people. And I remember discussing this with a friend. And I said, you can date other people as long as you're clear with everyone. And then, if you're seeing somebody and you can be clear that, hey, I am dating other people, it's not intimate. It's just that,
Or it is.
Or it is.
If
I mean, either way,
you have to say so.
You have to be clear.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And so Anne, to her credit, was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'm also going to be doing the same. So it's sort of like, because sometimes you meet somebody, how do you know that this is going to be the one? You don't. So you're dating a few people. And then the other thing is you have to exit from other relationships, right? You have to go to the person who you've known for months to say, hey, I've met Anne and I'm really going to concentrate on Anne, and I hope like we can be friends, but I don't want it to, lead you on. And so that can be very difficult. And I do feel that that's where people have to be very clear and well-intentioned, but it'll never be perfect. If someone has an intention to be with you and you've decided to move on, they're not going to be happy. So you can never leave it in a good way.
Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of exits, I know ghosting is a bit of a problem with dating these days.
Yes.
Is it ever
so
okay to ghost? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got ghosted on my first date. I was he did show up, but he showed up at the wrong place. And then he texted me and said, I'm not coming. And then somebody, would say their call and they didn't. You know what my suggestion is? Put on a big, heavy coat of armor, especially in the beginning. You don't know these people. You don't know what they're going through. They might have mental health issues. They might have been, they got all kinds of stuff going on in their lives. You don't know them. It is not about you. It is not about you. So when it happens, you just deflect it like a bullet off a tin can.
Ooh.
And you move on to the next, because there's always a next one. Don't spend any time beating yourself up or thinking you're not good enough.
But
it's just that world.
But don't be like that.
Yes.
The problem is ghosting also, if I look at the parallel to applying for jobs, a lot of times employers will tell me, oh, I'm expecting someone to come. They don't show up to work. Like, imagine, I said, because it's so easy to ghost and not spend any time being civil. So I think when it comes to your own behavior, know how to exit. The reason people ghost is because they just don't know how to deal with it.
That's right. They're afraid, right? Yes. They're afraid to tell the truth and say, or, I met somebody else. Sorry, I won't be there.
Yeah.
So it does happen, but you know what? I really believe that it's the minority of people. I believe most people are good, or they're just sometimes confused and don't know what to say. They're not evil.
Yeah.
A big part of online dating is learning to winnow down your feed. There's a great book out right now called Burn the Haystack. Jenny Young, I believe it is. And it's all about burn down the haystack to find the golden needle. And what that means is eliminating people from your feed.
Yeah.
So if you're a woman and you put up your dating profile and you get 20 messages, which you will, hey babe, hi there, how you doing? Talk to me. You actually block all those people so that they don't show up in your feed again. Anyone who writes to you and says, hey there, is already making you do all the work. You don't want them. So you eliminate them by blocking them. That's not to be rude. It's just to get them out of your feed. You're winnowing it down to the few good men or women. So do not respond to those people. When you're new to online dating, you probably think, oh, a lot of women, I should be nice. I should respond. No, unless they ask you a question or make a comment about your dating profile, do not bother getting back to them. So it's all about narrowing it down.
Yeah, you're just filter.
You're just looking for one.
Filtering it down.
That's right. That's right.
All right, shall we dive into some specific questions that folks have sent into us? Thank you, everyone, for all of these incredible questions. I hope we can get to all of them. We got so many good ones, though. We're going to do our best. And let's start with Elizabeth R., who wants to know a question that I think probably a lot of people have, which is like, what are the best apps? Like, which is the right one for me? Like, is there one that is like maybe better for folks who are over 50, or is it person by person? What would your advice be?
Yeah, I mean, I think our advice is that go with the largest pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Tinder does have the largest pool, but everyone has opinions about Tinder, because of Tinder Swindler and some of the online scams. They're like, oh no, don't go there. That's a hookup site. Again, the site is the largest site. It has the most people. And depending on your age and geographic area, you'll have the largest success. And again, it doesn't matter the name of the app because they all kind of do the same thing, right? So you had Tinder, you have Bumble that came from Tinder. They're all, groups of people. If you're in a large metropolitan area, you can almost go with anything. But if you're in a small, mid-sized town or smaller, go with the largest pool, which is Tinder.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we met. And it is no longer, I mean, if you want to hook up, that you can use Tinder for that. You can use the other apps for that. But lots of regular folks who aren't looking for that are on Tinder. The other one I would suggest, if you are very active on Facebook, is Facebook Dating. It's free, which is not always good. I suggest people pay for the apps. It's worth $40 a month to find a great partner. But Facebook can connect you with people that you are friends with. So Sarah, if you and I are friends on Facebook and you have a great brother that I might be interested in, he's on Facebook Dating, I would connect with him without you knowing. But we would know that you're the common denominator. So I could call you and say, tell me about your brother. So that's kind of, I did have some okay dates on Facebook Dating.
Yeah, and then there's specialized sites, for if you're into fitness. And, I knew somebody who found a partner on Fitness Singles. You might have a ethnic group or a religious leaning. And so there's different groups for that. But then the pool is smaller, right? So if you're going to a specific group that only does pickleball, well, it's going to be a very small amount of people that you'll be able to choose from.
And Brenda J. would like to know, how do we deal with family resistance to dating if you're over 50? Maybe it's your kids, maybe it's siblings, but people who are like, should you be doing this?
Ignore them.
Yeah.
They don't have any right to tell you what to do. Just if they're not going to be supportive, don't talk to them about it. Find friends who will be. Why would someone resist you?
Well, the people can be selective. I know, some adult children will be like, no, I can't, especially if one of the one of the parents have passed away, then they don't really necessarily want mom or dad to start looking for another partner. But, you have a right to be happy. You have a right to have a friend. And, everyone complains that as they age, loneliness is the number one issue. So I would maybe just not tell them till it gets, a little bit along. And if it's more serious, then you can, introduce them or mention it.
I think some adult children who have very elderly parents get a little worried.
Yeah.
Will this affect my inheritance, perhaps? Things like that. But if you're of sound mind, you're allowed to do whatever you want, really.
Yeah.
And Dale H. would like to know, how do you distinguish real people from the fake ones?
Great
no one wants
question.
to get catfished.
Great question. So there are ways, if they're visual images, you can put them through a reverse search in Google, image search. If they're just too perfect, that tends to, and also if the person doesn't want to get to the first date soon, then they're
Exactly.
not real, right? Because they're trying to connect with you to get familiar with you, and eventually they'll ask you for money. And everybody has stories about that.
Including Amit.
Yes.
Exactly. If you're interested in someone and you say to them, let's go for a date on Wednesday, let's go for a walk on Wednesday, and they put up some sort of resistance, someone who's catfishing you does not want to meet you in person. That's all done typically online.
Yeah.
So get to the first date as soon as possible. And anyone who professes their undying devotion to you, like, you're so beautiful, this is, men and women fall for this because they're lonely and they want to believe it, and they're new to online dating and they don't realize that this is a total scam. No one can love you if they don't know you. So you have to be very wary in the beginning. And
keep the walls up at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then slowly reduce as you win or have trust with that person. I had a case of somebody that I had met, and we'd gone on a couple of dates, and I knew that we were not going to be long-term partners. But she had met someone online, a year later, who said they were a physician who was working overseas. They were coming to visit her, and they were going to arrive in a couple of weeks. And I spoke to her. I called her, 2 weeks later. I go, how did it go? No, he couldn't make it because something came up at work, and now he has to apply for an exit visa, and that's going to cost $500. And I've already sent it to him.
Yeah.
So, you knew that this person was just pining for this time.
And that's the problem of being too needy for love, right? Like, we all do need love, but there's different kinds of love. There's love from friends, love of hobbies and reading, love of our children, love of, whatever. If we're too needy, we can be really vulnerable and fall for that. I mean, loving ourselves, believing that we're enough, that we don't need someone else to validate us.
Yeah.
So, but really the best advice we can give is get to the first date as soon as possible. As soon as you meet this person in real life, you're going to have way more information to go on than some person messaging you these love bombing stuff.
And safe to say, if they start wanting money from you, it's almost certainly not going to
No
be
one should be
life.
Yeah, unless you have like oodles of it. And so I did use that once. I told the person, I do have money, but I could minimally give you $1 million. You have to take $1 million. And I think they just
were confused.
They were confused. They're like, really? Wow.
Yeah, money should never enter the conversation. And that also, I don't know if you want to ask us about that at some point, Sarah, about how we handle money on dates, because that's also a very interesting topic.
No, let's talk about it. I know some people, for instance, especially if they're coming back into dating, they may be used to certain gender norms around who might pay for a date, who doesn't pay for a date. Where do you sort of fall on that now?
Yeah, I think our thinking is amount, right? So if you're going out for coffee and you're buying, coffees for both of you, I mean, that's fine.
That's what you did on our
That's what I
first
did.
date.
That's right. And so, and it just seemed natural. It's fine. If you're going for a meal, then it gets to be tricky. I think you should always offer. I think both people should offer to split. And, I used to sometimes, if it was at a meal, then I would say, let me, especially if I knew that I wanted to meet them again, then I'd say, okay, let me get it. You can get the next one. So then there's that next one, right? We hope.
Yeah, expecting the man to pay, in my view, I mean, I'm 64, so I'm of a certain generation, I suppose. But even when I was with my husband, when I was 19 or 20, I always insisted on paying my share. I don't really like a guy paying for me. Now, if we go out, we might take turns, or we'll treat each other.
Or if we go out for an evening, she'll pay for dinner and I'll pay for the show.
Yeah, we tend to split everything, which I think feels really good. We're about the same income level. Don't expect the guy to pay, and some women, I have to say, I've heard some stories
they
about
still
women
think
really
that.
taking advantage of that, or having 3 dates a week where a guy's paying. Like, you don't want to be that person. So always just split. Once you do go out for dinner or lunch, split it. If the guy really insists and it really, really wants to do it, you can let him. But is that the kind of person? Is that, some women want that. I wouldn't want that.
There's
myself.
a power dynamic, actually. If you read into, even when I speak to men, and they'll say, oh, I said, have you been going out on dates? Well, yeah, but there's always this obligation that, I have to pay, and, she'll never offer. And, if I do, then there's an expectation, like, will there be intimacy after? Like, there shouldn't be that. Like, you're adults, and you're essentially friends. So if you were out with a friend, you would be splitting it.
Yeah.
So
that's really the best way to go.
yeah.
Here's an interesting one from Eugene F. And he says, what would you recommend for someone wanting to start a family at this age? And by that, he assumes over 50.
Mm-hmm.
So a man who's over 50.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I have a case. Like, so I have a good friend of mine who's over 50, and he would like to meet a partner who would like to start a family. So our advice would be to be clear right at the beginning that you are looking for somebody to start a family. Because if you're over 50 and you're male and you're looking for a female partner sort of under 40, then, right away, everyone's going to question, especially if you have adult children who are in their early 20s. So, but if you say, no, I'm looking for a partner to start a family with, then everyone knows, and we're all reading by the same, rule book.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure I would put it in the dating profile, though I do believe in being pretty specific. If it's a deal breaker for you, you could say something, like about who you are, and then, I'm open to having more children. So if it's a 52-year-old man, that means it's going to be a woman 35 to 40. And some women in that age category really want to have a kid.
Yes.
So they're going to be like, great, he's not too old. And yeah, I do want a kid. So again, you're just looking for one or two people, right? Like you're narrowing it down, but you're being honest about what you want. For me, in my profile, one of my deal breakers was I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody, but I wanted to go out with somebody who was on the liberal spectrum in politics. That was really important to me. And I did have a line in my bio that said, looking for a guy who truly likes women, likes to dance real slow, leans left, or something else, right? And many of the guys who I ended up going out with were conservative, and it just wasn't going to work. So Amit is more middle of the road liberal, which was fine, but for me that was important. And
you got it out there, which was rare, actually. From all the bios I had read, no one had actually specified what they were looking for. Right? They just said, oh, I'm looking to meet someone nice, meet someone fun. And the number one thing that women would always say, I'm looking for someone who's funny. Yeah. Right? So comedy, so that I had to really work on my performance, because I knew that I'd be under,
Well, it's funny because we joke about how women will say, I want a guy who's funny. Men never, ever say in their bios, I want a woman who's funny.
That's right.
I don't get it. I think I'm funny.
Well, you're kind of zany, which is sort of funny and kind of cute.
So. But women also will say, I want a tall guy. I want over 6 feet. And we address that in our workshops. That's like a man saying, I have to go with a woman with big breasts. It's not who they are. It's how they're born. And maybe address that stereotype in your head. There's a lot of guys under 5'6" who might love to go out with you. Can you get over the shorter height? Think about the things that we've been indoctrinated with in terms of what we find appealing. It's really values, character, communication, connection. We need to get over the exterior a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, and Karen S has kind of a related question to this. When it comes to money, how do you meet people when you are not well off financially? Why is there such a stigma to being old and poor?
Well, Karen, thank you. Great question, because I don't think there's a stigma to being old, because we all think of different things as old. We were at a show recently, and Anne said, "Oh, look around. Everyone's old."
Rod Stewart.
Yeah, and it was Rod Stewart. And I said, well, we're actually in that category, And so old is in your head. I mean, old can be whatever you want it to be. But the poor part, you don't have to spend money. When you go out for a walk, there's no cost to that, especially with the weather getting better. Going and grabbing a coffee or maybe, a glass of water, bring your own water bottle. That's picnic. Also a picnic. So there are a lot of ways to keep price down. But I hear her, like that is a concern, because if you think of doing something, I mean, another good thing would be go to the library. I mean, if you like books, that's a good thing to do. But
movies can be cheap, although I don't recommend movies for first dates
yeah,
because you
because you're
don't
not
talk to each
talking,
other.
you're just looking at the screen.
But and also, if there's two of you, it does make things a little bit more affordable if you do go out together. Don't let that stand in your way. My mother is 81. My stepfather died 7 years ago. She has a boyfriend who's 91, and they are so happy. We hear these stories all the time. Lots of women in our workshops who are in their 70s have met partners. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for what you're all looking for.
Yes,
It's just a few strategies to keep in mind. So don't let this idea that, oh, I'm old, I'm poor, I'm not worthy. Yes, you are worthy. Everyone is worthy of love and affection.
And Hillary J would like to know, what is the best online platform for financially independent women in their 60s?
Well, there are a few like Match, which tend to skew more towards a higher net earnings person or professional. Some of these are professional sites. That would probably be one.
There's another one, I'm trying to remember the name of it now, where it's educated folks.
Yeah, so the site with master's degrees or professional designations. But again, the pool is small, right? You're going to, and depending on where you are. So when you're on the app, you put in the age range that you want, that you're looking for, and the geographic area that you're willing to go. So a lot of people will say, like, I think 50 kilometers radius, and Anne ends up being like about 45 kilometers away from me. And so but financially, there was the one other site that actually has professional designations.
But I wouldn't do that. I would go with Tinder. I would just, if you're a 60-year-old woman who's got resources, still date men. I mean, maybe meet a plumber. Like, it doesn't mean just because you have a lot of assets, don't assume other people don't as well. And, you don't have to talk about that. You can assess that when you meet someone. You can say things like, I'm financially independent and I hope you are too.
Yes.
But I would be a little bit careful about getting into money in your profile, because as soon as you say you're financially independent, you could attract some people that maybe you wouldn't want to attract. There are lots of women these days who go out with men who make less money than them. So it's not all about the money. It's really about meeting the person that you connect with.
Yeah, and actually it reminds me of a person that I met just before I meeting Anne, and she was a professor, still is a professor, and she had met an electrician online, and she went out and she had amazing time, great connection, and we've continued to be friends, and our relationship has been the same time. So I always ask her about hers. She always asks about Anne, and we want to get together. And she'll say, "Well, it's good, but he's in a different, he's blue collar. You might not get along." I said, "It's okay." I said, "We don't judge people.
People are people.
Yeah, you don't judge them on their profession or their income."
Yeah, exactly.
What are your thoughts on LinkedIn for dating?
I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't know. I think it's still, would be considered a faux pas. It might be a connection tool, like maybe you're connecting with someone and say, hey, maybe we can connect over. But you want to be careful because, it's a professional sort of site.
As a woman, I would not like it when I was single if someone reached out and wanted to go for coffee under business pretenses, and then I found out that it's not the place, I don't think.
Yeah, the other site I liked actually was Meetup. So Meetup is free, right? And they post all sorts of different events that are going on, which could be considered entertainment or social, and there's really no cost. Sometimes there is a minimal cost, and you can meet a lot of people. And I found
you're a man.
If you're a man, it was 80% women, usually 80% single women.
Yeah. It is easier in some ways for men, I feel, online. I don't know if you would agree with that. I feel I have to be careful, but I feel there's so many great women and, with men, it's harder for them, they maybe haven't developed their social skills as much, or they lean on their ex-partner for their social life, so they don't have one, and they sometimes look to women to provide that.
Right.
So men have a little bit of work to do, although I think there's a lot of great men out there. I really, really do. I think they've also been misinformed about what women want sometimes. So I would encourage men to think about that and work on that, and take our workshop or talk to Amit.
Yes, I'm
Um,
available. We can go for a walk. I should do that. Go on walks with men.
Yeah, walking
And just
coaching. It's a
no
good
talking
idea.
about sports. No talking about cars.
Just feelings.
That's feelings. That's right.
We've got kind of a related question from Alan R., who wants to know, how does neurodivergence, high functioning, play into the over 50 scene? I thought this was such an interesting question.
Very good question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that when you're neurodivergent, maybe scripting, or maybe having a clear idea and being clear when you're speaking to the potential partner to say, hey, I'm not very good at small talk, but I do like deep discussion. So you're reframing what other people might look at and say is a weakness, but you're actually showing that it's actually a superpower. Like, oh, I do
love
like
that.
deep discussion. I have feelings and I'm willing to discuss them.
And even I think now we have so much more familiarity with that there's a spectrum, and many people are on it, men and women, maybe even saying, listen, I'm neurodivergent. So sometimes, as Amit says, small talk is hard for me, but I love going out. I love meeting people, and I'm really into chess or whatever, movies, sci-fi. Be straight about it, because someone's gonna clue into that and go, yeah, that's the kind of person for me, right?
And Alan G. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Alan G wants to know, as a widow, I find that I don't have the negative past partner views that divorcees often have. As a result, I don't have much tolerance to listening to it. Should I limit my romantic prospect scope to only other widows? Which is kind of an interesting thing, because I think it also ties into probably another question people have around how much do you actually talk about your relationship history, and, at what point do you kind of bring into maybe your own story into a dating relationship?
Yeah, I'll answer the first question and maybe you answer the second one. So don't assume that all widows had happy marriages. I know some who didn't. So no, I would not just limit yourself to a widow. I know women who were divorced, who met a widow, and they have a great relationship. So I would definitely not limit yourself just to widows. Do you want to address the other?
Yeah, I think you get all types of people, and sometimes we stereotype that, they're going to be this way. And I found that that's probably the talking about exes is an interesting way of knowing the person's thinking on a lot of ways. So when I met people, and I would ask them to talk, and I would just listen, and they would come out with all of these comments, and then I would wait for them to ask me the same question, and it didn't always happen, right? Because they were still trying to get all this stuff out of their system. But really, the past and our relationships with our past partners should be discussed, but it shouldn't take over the whole conversation. I mean, nobody wants to hear like 100% of every little minutia about your ex, but a little bit of insight would be good.
Yeah, and I know on our first date, they say don't talk about your exes, but we did.
Yeah.
And one of the things I respected so much about you was that you spoke well of your ex, and I think I did too, even though there were issues, obviously. So that was very insightful. But when you go out on a first or second date with someone, don't complain about anything.
Yeah.
Don't complain about the weather. Don't complain about the food that, if you did have a meal. Don't complain about your friends. Don't complain. That's not attractive. Put your best face forward. If you're the complaining type, you need to work on that. I mean, we all complain sometimes, but that's not really pleasant to be around. So that's something that you need to maybe work on, right?
And we've touched on intimacy a little bit, but Cindy M has a specific question around it, which is how best to discuss sexual relations when dating after 70. We all know that the body can have a mind of its own, but how best to suggest using enhancements for a male partner?
Great. That just brings to mind one couple that met a woman who was in her 70s, who is in a lovely relationship now with a guy. And I think I can share this because there's no identifying details. But she told us when we followed up with her later that they don't have penetrative sex because neither of them are able or interested in doing that. And they do other things. So I don't know what those things are. So definitely the body changes afterwards. And I would say, Well, you can answer as a man, but I would say wait till the right moment, I would not bring that up initially. I would wait till the right moment, and hopefully the person is open to that and recognizes that our bodies do change. They change for women as well. Trying to have open spirit of communication.
Yeah, and I think from a man's perspective, of course, with marketing and media bombarding men all the time about using enhancements, they're there to use, but that you should be discussing it with your partner. I do know of cases where men would just say, I cannot show any weakness. I have to make sure I take enhancing product just to make sure that I'm a man. But the whole definition of what is a man, I mean, masculinity, and we're trying to show that men can be deeper and can be more sensitive and emotional, that it doesn't have to be this macho image of what a man is.
And I think one of the joys of, I got married very young, Amit as well. We were both in our 20s. I knew nothing. I grew up in a very sheltered world, and I was very naive, and I knew nothing. One of the beautiful things about being older when you embark on relationships is you might be a bit more adventuresome. And, there's a lot of people post 60 who are having great sex. So yeah, you do, your beauty fades or whatever, your ability, but you're in your mind, you're much more open and you're more well-read, and it can really be a wonderful stage of life.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to meet a partner and sort of not be in a rush. I think one of the things I recommend to men is don't be in a hurry to get intimate. You can hold hand, you can do light, but don't get in a rush, because what happens is sometimes men are focused, maybe biologically, just to make it intimate as soon as possible. And then they lose interest in their female partner, and then she also wonders, like, well, what happened there? Like, why was he was so interested and then he's pulled away? So I recommend both partners to take your time, because if this is going to be for the long run, you've got many, many dates coming up. So why rush it?
And there are some people who think about it differently.
Mhm.
They maybe were in a stale marriage for decades and they
Right.
want to get out and they want to experiment and they want to have sex, and that is fantastic. Just be sure you're safe and be sure you talk about it, and have a good time.
That's right.
Well, we've got a question from CQ, who has sort of a view from another end of the spectrum, which is how to date without expectations of sex. I am not interested in sex or deep kisses, but I do love hugs and hand holding. I also prefer to sleep alone. How to word this so as not to turn people off?
Yeah, I would say in that case, wait for the date
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
explain it in person.
Yeah. Doesn't read right. Like if you put it
Yeah.
in words, people would be like, "Oh, I don't think I want to meet this person."
Mind you, what you're saying, what is his name?
No, it's letters. CQ.
Oh, CQ. What you're saying, CQ, is just so self-aware about your own needs, and I think that's wonderful. You know what you want and what you don't want, and
Mhm.
that's really refreshing. And it has to work for you, and there's all kinds of people in the world. Lots of people don't like to sleep in the same bed, that's especially as you get older.
Yes.
So I would, be careful about how you phrase your dating bio. So you're not going to talk about intimacy, but when you do meet someone and you like them, you can say, you know what, I'm really into hand holding. I'm really into hugs, not I don't do this, but
Right.
this is what works for me. What works for you?
Rephrasing it.
And
Yeah.
you might find there's a lot of women who find that refreshing.
And then from Rana A, she would like to know, how do you find the right partner at 50 after spending years of being independent, content, and comfortable living life your own way?
Independent and content. Well, I mean, it's great to be independent and content, but you don't know what you're missing. So, again, 50 is just one age, but after 50, be open to maybe meeting someone. Doesn't mean it's going to change your independence, doesn't mean it's going to change your contentment. It might move it to another level.
Yeah, and I think you can be content and independent and be in a relationship. We don't live together. We see each other on weekends. We have date nights on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
We're both quite independent. We both still work.
We have our own lives, but I think that we're still, like, I was content before. I mean, I'm super happy now, but we both have our time when we can just read our own books and write our own poetry.
Yeah, he plays poker, he plays golf, he plays pickleball. I have my girlfriends. Like, we appreciate the fact it's very attractive to be with somebody who does have a life, who's not looking to you to fill it, right? We do things together, but we do have this independence. So I would say, you want to look for someone who's similarly content and independent.
And who can add value to you. So that obviously you don't want to, and I've had women approach me to say that. They said, my life is great ever since I've lost Mr. X from whatever years ago. I have my own wealth, I have my own asset, I'm independent, I'm content. Why would I want to give that up?
And maybe they don't.
They don't have to give that up, and only pick somebody who can add to your happiness.
That feels like a really lovely way to end our conversation. I couldn't think of a nicer note to kind of wrap with. Thank you both so much for being here. Thank you to everyone else who has joined in and listened to this conversation. And have a great rest of the day, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everyone.
Bye.